right, if we can get the meeting to order, please. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Thursday, November 8th, 2018. I'm going to ask everybody to please put their phones on a quiet mode. We all do that. So we got the mics on. Okay, let's get this. How's that? That better? All right, good. Good morning, everybody. All right, this morning we would have a great friend of mine and good pastor, Dennis Brunet, here from Midway Baptist Church, but he had a doctor's appointment this morning, so he's got a great wingman going to fill us in on some words from the gospel this morning, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask Commissioner Parker to lead us in the pledge. Y'all please rise.
Good morning. Let's go to our great God this morning. Father, we do praise you. We come before you acknowledging your sovereignty over all the affairs of men. We come before you with broken hearts for those in Thousand Oaks, California, Lord, dealing with this latest shooting. Lord, we pray for your comfort and your never-ceasing peace upon those families and all those affected, Lord. We lift up the family of Deputy Ron Heberty, Lord, and we thank you for his bravery and his selfless sacrifice in preventing death and injury to many more. Lord, as we come before you, we are conscious that we live in a nation that is abundantly blessed by you. Lord, from democratic self-rule to the ability to come in this place and voice concerns, Lord, you have blessed this nation, and we ask that you would continue to do so. Pray that you would help each one of us, even as we disagree with one another, Lord, to do so civilly. Lord, to recognize the humanity and the differing beliefs of each of our fellow men. And Lord, I lift up this council to you. Father, you are clear in your word that you are the one who places men and women in positions of authority, and that we are to honor those that you have placed there. Lord, we pray that you would pour out your mercy and your grace upon them, Lord, that you would give them great wisdom, that you would give them discernment, Lord, that you would help them to not seek to be served, but rather to humbly serve the people of Santa Rosa County. Lord, we pray, just as your word says, that you would guide their hearts in such a way, Lord, that you were given the greatest glory. Lord, we thank you for who you are. We thank you for the precious gift of your Son and our Savior, Jesus Christ. And it's in his name we pray this morning. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you for coming today, and give the pastor our regards. Thank you. All right, this time I'll ask for approval of the minutes of the October 25th, 2018 regular meeting. Is there any changes or other items on that meeting that need to be noted or corrected? Seeing none, I'll move that without objection. Hearing none, so moved. Now I'll start to my left with Commissioner Lynchard to approve today's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. No changes to the agenda. Just appreciate everyone's patience in the delayed start of the meeting. We had our groundbreaking for the Miracle League and a great turnout. Looking forward to the first opening pitch in April.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for all your work on that, too. Commissioner Salter.
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Parker.
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Williamson.
Morning, Mr. Chairman.
Morning.
Just a point of personal privilege, if I could add to the regular agenda. Just like to make some comments, as this is my last meeting.
I think maybe we can arrange that. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
do I have a motion to accept the change to the... All right. All right. Move for approval. Anything else from County Clerk, Clerk of Courts, staff?
So one
Admin?
thing, we have Sean Ward is here to give the presentation, the same planning and zoning presentation he gave on Monday. It's
Okay.
not on the agenda, but he is here, and we'll cue that up right after the proclamations.
All right, great,
No-
thank you.
No changes to the agenda, but I do want to point out some things that are different from the way we left them on Monday. The legislative priorities is back on the regular agenda. It was moved to the consent agenda because we added an item, a request for $150,000 to support the 4-H educational facility at the county extension. We removed the Navarre Beach Fire MOA. Our attorney is out, and they had some questions that require his review, so we'll have that on the next agenda. And then we added 2 items because we don't have a second meeting. We did not consider these on Monday, but they're fairly straightforward requests. One is a grant agreement for the Woodlawn boat ramp, and the second one is a request from the Pace Fire Department for a special event. So those are on the regular agenda. I just want to point that out.
Okay, and I have one addition when Sean does his, trying to call it a demonstration. Whenever Sean puts forth the changes, the LDC or the plans that we are taking a look at, I got a letter I'd like to read into the record. All right, I stumbled on that pretty good. I'm going to start this morning with, we got 3 proclamations. I'm going to start first, and it's a little out of order, but with Giving Tuesday, and followed by Hunger Awareness and Homeless Awareness Week. So, who has the first one?
I had the giving, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Williamson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Proclamation related to Giving Tuesday. Whereas Giving Tuesday was established as a national day of giving on the Tuesday following Thanksgiving, and whereas Giving Tuesday is a celebration of philanthropy and volunteerism where people give whatever they are able to give, and whereas Giving Tuesday is a day where citizens work together to share commitments, rally for favorite causes, build a stronger community, and think about each other. Whereas it is fitting and proper on Giving Tuesday and on every day to recognize the tremendous impact of philanthropy, volunteerism, and community service in Santa Rosa County. And whereas Giving Tuesday is an opportunity to encourage citizens to serve others throughout the holiday and during other times of the year. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Santa Rosa County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim the Tuesday following Thanksgiving as Giving Tuesday in Santa Rosa County, and encourage all citizens to join together to give back to their community in any way that is personally meaningful. And this will be signed by our Honorable Chairman, Bob Cole.
Thank you, Commissioner Williamson. We have somebody here to accept that this morning. All right.
You just sign it, Bob.
Kendra, good morning.
And I'm sorry, my microphone wasn't on. Giving Tuesday is a global day of giving where charities, families, businesses, and individuals around the world come together to encourage philanthropy and celebrate generosity. By this proclamation, we are showing the world what we already know, that Santa Rosa County, Florida is truly a giving community, not just on Giving Tuesday, but every day. Thank you.
Kendra, if you'll come up here with us, we'll get a photograph, please. All right, and Commissioner Lynchard has the Hunger and Homeless Awareness Week.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a proclamation for National Hunger and Homeless Awareness Week. A lot of times people are surprised when they dive into the numbers of homeless and underserved people that we have here in the south end of the county. So this is a proclamation that is very meaningful every year. Whereas for the past several years, the National Coalition for the Homeless and National Student Campaign Against Hunger and Homelessness have sponsored National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. And whereas the purpose of the proclamation is to educate the public about the many reasons people are hungry and homeless, including the shortage of affordable housing in Santa Rosa County, Florida, for very low-income residents, and to encourage support for homeless assistance service providers, as well as community service opportunities for students and school service organizations. And whereas Opening Doors Northwest Florida, Inc., which includes many organizations, is committed to providing shelter, supportive services, meals, and food supplies to the homeless. And whereas the theme of National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week 2018 is changing the way homeless is being addressed for those who are living or close to living without a home, because everyone deserves a safe place to sleep at night. And whereas the Board of County Commissioners recognizes that hunger and homelessness continue to be a serious problem for many individuals and families in Santa Rosa County. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Board of County Commissioners of Santa Rosa County, hereby proclaims November 10th through 18th, 2018 as National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week, and encourages all citizens to recognize that many people do not have housing and need support from citizens and private, public, nonprofit service entities. Passed and adopted by the Board of County Commissioners this 8th day of November, 2018. And we have Serene here. Good morning.
Serene Kike, I'm with the Opening Doors Northwest Florida. We are the formerly Escarosa Coalition on the Homeless, and we have been serving homeless and at-risk homeless for over 30 years now. With the change of our name, it wasn't just a name or a new website. We also have changed the way we are addressing homelessness. This year, we have implemented a coordinated entry system of care where anyone seeking services can be guided through this system of care and then directed to the best resources in a community-wide. We are the lead continuum of care, serving both Escambia and Santa Rosa County, which means sometimes, because we are based in Escambia County, we do have issues trying to reach the Santa Rosians. However, we have resolved this issue. We are now partnered with the St. Rosa Lima Catholic Church, where we do appointments only, and we can now get these resources. We also are so happy to say that we are the current recipients of the Impact 100 grant, which now is going to give us a mobile unit. It's actually an office connected to the community-wide database system where we can reach anyone now in Santa Rosa County, whether we're talking south, central, or north end. It wasn't just a win for Opening Doors or our clients. It was a win for Santa Rosa. I thank you once again, County Commissioners, for what you do and how you serve us. As we said in our motto, we just want a safe place for everyone who deserves it, a place to sleep at night. Thank you so much again for this recognition.
Thank you, Serene. Serene, if you'll come on up, please.
I might say too, Serene and her husband Dano are a couple of the original members of the Blackwater Pirates. And also, if you've noticed, the big red ice cream trolley at a lot of our events in Santa Rosa County, it's pretty unique. I mean, it's kind of the ultimate food vendor type thing. So, if you see the big red trolley-looking bus, have yourself an ice cream. Not on me. All right, had to put in a little plug for them. All right, our next presentation and proclamation this morning is for a day that's very close, I believe, to all of our hearts. And if you're an American and it's not, then you better check your pulse. One thing that's not on the proclamation, though, is the recognition of the end of World War I. It's been 100 years for the war to end all wars. unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and we continue to fight with others that don't like our way of life, and we got brave young Americans out defending that way of life. So, and you know, a lot of times you hear, you know, this guy's a Marine's Marine. I hear that comment a lot, you know, and we got other words for other people. And although Commissioner Salter is not a Marine, he's Army, he's a veteran's veteran. So I'm going to ask him to read this proclamation.
Thank you, Commissioner Cole. You comment about the Marines, I got one response, airborne. County of Santa Rosa, proclamation. Whereas brave men and women have served our country in an exemplary manner in all parts of the world since the country's inception, and whereas all citizens of the United States have benefited from their sacrifices made by these veterans in defending this country, and whereas our country's veterans continue to serve our country in the cause of freedom by exemplifying the patriotism and love of country that has become the fabric of our society. And whereas it is right to remember, recognize, and honor current and past service to our country by all veterans, now be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of Santa Rosa County that Sunday, November the 11th, 2018 is proclaimed Veterans Day, and the board encourages all citizens to honor those who have served and who continue to serve their country, to preserve the principles of justice, freedom, and democracy by participating in ceremonies honoring our veterans, passed and adopted by the Board of County Commissioners this 8th day of November 2018, signed by our chairman, Commissioner Bob Cole. Now, I would just remind everyone, the proclamation says Veterans Day is Sunday, which it is, but services will be on Monday. I know in Milton, we'll have a parade starting at 9:30 at Milton High School. Then we'll have a service at the Santa Rosa Veterans Memorial Plaza starting at 11. And I know Commissioner Rob Williamson, you got going on in Noir.
Thank you, Commissioner Salter. Actually, my 13-year-old daughter will be performing at all 3 church services, singing in the band this Sunday. So, unfortunately, this will be the first time I've ever missed the Veterans Day proclamation reading. But Commissioner-elect Dave Peach was gracious enough on short notice to agree to attend the event and to read the proclamation on our behalf. And I see that Commissioner-elect Peach is here. Thank you for stepping up to do that. We're grateful. So we'll be covered down there.
Great. And also, we talk about supporting and recognizing our veterans, but I'd be amiss to say the families of those veterans and those people, those men and women who actively serve, they couldn't do it without family support. So we want to recognize the families as well, and we'll do that on Monday. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Commissioner Cole.
Thank you. And also, please try to come out Monday, but also after that event, the 4-H serves hamburgers and hot dogs just for donations. And then about an hour, is it about an hour, Brandy, after that event, we're all going to meet at Baghdad Millsite Park. And if you have not been there, it's a beautiful park. We, at the point of the Blackwater River and Pond Creek, we took a piece of property that was ruined, basically. It had been a concrete plant for years and years, and thanks to the hard work of Steve Furman in Public Works and volunteers, we've turned it into a beautiful park for the citizens of Santa Rosa County. In that park on Monday after the event, we've already planted an oak tree, and we're going to put up a plaque with the names of all the service members that died in World War I from Santa Rosa County. And that was looking forward to that, so please come on out and join us for that event. So, all right, thank you. With that said, we're going to go ahead. We don't have any other presentations this morning, so I'm going to move to we want to do the presentation now? Okay, all right. Sean, I'm sorry. Come on up and do your thing. Sean, give me just a moment. Let me read this in the record. I had a letter. Or go ahead, Sean, and I'll pull it back up. It erased itself here. So I'll get it at the end. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners, also with the members of the public that are out here. So several months ago, the county administrator had asked that that I give a presentation to the Board of County Commissioners and mostly for the public, just to give a general update on planning and zoning and some of the documents that, that our staff utilizes. So the comprehensive plan and the future land use map, that is mandated by Chapter 163 of Florida statutes. That document was actually called the Local Government Comprehensive Plan, or the Planning Act. It was originally adopted in Santa Rosa County in 1990, and it's been amended periodically, allowed by statute. Our most recent update was in 2017. The state requires us to update this document every 7 years. So the comprehensive plan is very specific as to what it's to address. Everything from future land use, transportation, housing, infrastructure, capital improvements, and intergovernmental coordination. Looking forward to the Land Development Code, or Land Development Regulations. Again, this was mandated by Chapter 163 of Florida statutes, and it basically stated that within 1 year after the submission of our comprehensive plan, that we shall adopt a Land Development Code for implementation. The Land Development Code is broken up into 12 articles, everything from legal to concurrency management, land use and zoning controls, signage, floodplain management, airport environs, and coastal management. So a little bit of a time frame as far as the planning goes here in Santa Rosa County. We adopted the comprehensive plan in 1990. Zoning was implemented over several years from different areas of the county, from the north to the south, from 1986 to 1991. The Land Development Code was formally adopted in 1991. And then over time, we've adopted special area plans. The majority of these plans are public participation. They're public driven. From the Navarre Beach Master Plan of 2002, the Joint Land Use Study with the Military Cooperation, the Rural Development Plan in 2005 with Commissioner Salter and his citizens within his district, the District 4 Master Plan that's currently under review, and then the future of the Pace Greater Area Master Plan in 2019. So zoning overall is basically the power of state and its public subdivisions to protect health, safety, and general welfare. Something that I can certainly stress here with the group that we have certainly here in the audience this morning is that if proposed development, either subdivisions or commercial, meet the requirements of the Land Development Code and the Comprehensive Plan, then it is reviewed by staff and does not require a public notification process. So moving into the role of the Zoning Board. The Zoning Board was created in '81. They look at the Comprehensive Plan and the Land Development Code. They process applications monthly, and their main objective is to monitor and oversee the effectiveness and the status of those documents. School coordination. A lot of times at the Zoning Board we have individuals that show up and question the school's representation. So we do have a school board representative on the Zoning Board as a non-voting member, and the Santa Rosa County does have an interlocal agreement for the public and the school facilities that we have. We also have a non-voting member from NAS Whiting Field, as well as Eglin Air Force Base and their community planners. So they're aware of what we have going on. We certainly work with them on rezoning cases and land use cases. And then some of the other coordinations we've had with the military is the Joint Land Use Study and the land acquisition projects that we've had around NAS Whiting Field. So the Land Development Code and the Comprehensive Plan amendments. So map amendments, this is where a lot of times the public is first notified. These are citizen-initiated map amendments to zoning map changes, zoning code changes. The majority of these requests come from the public, so it's not county staff, it's not the county commissioners that making these changes. It certainly is the public walking forth and asking to amend their property and change their use. The county-sponsored amendments that we've implemented, such as the target area plans, Navarre Beach, and the rural development plan, those also are public input and public solicitation on those, and staff tries to do everything that we can when we initiate those studies to notify the public. Text amendments, so if we're having changes to the Land Development Code or our comprehensive plan, those can either come from the commissioner or staff initiated. One of the things that staff tends to look at is our trends. So if we continuously see cases or variance cases come into the Land Development Code, we know we need to make those changes. That's something we need to change. Zoning board can make requests to change, and also public requests. So if the public submits a change to the code, something that they're having trouble with, they can certainly present that to the county commissioner or to county staff, and we will take that to the board and ask for basically direction on whether to move forward with that change or not. So public notification. A lot of times people ask, hey, what do you do? If I see a sign or if I'm notified, what do I need to do? So we mail letters to surrounding property owners, and within the land development code, it identifies if it's a rezoning case, it's 500 feet. Up in the north end of the county, we send notification letters to everybody within 1,500 feet, simply because of the large acreage up there. We post a sign on the property for public notification, and then rezonings and land use changes actually require advertisement within the local papers. Public notification takes place 2 weeks prior to the public meeting. And so we send the letters out, we post a sign, and the advertisement hits 2 weeks prior to the meeting. And then we always post the agenda and the packet online a week ahead of time for the public to review. Commissioner Cole, you said you had a letter. Did you want to read that now, or you want me to finish? Or okay. So the planning and zoning department makeup, we have our front-end planners, we have a site plan review team, we have a long-range planning team, and our transportation planning. So our frontline planning, basically these are the customers or the planning staff that helps citizens when you call. You want to know how tall your fence can be, what are your setbacks, and things of that question. Those are what our frontline planner staff do. They help our walk-in customers as well. So over the last year, we had approximately 9,700 customers, either that were walk-ins, telephone calls, correspondence, or reviews. We had 2,300 zoning reviews that were performed. So if you submitted a building plan, it's first reviewed by our planning staff, and then it proceeds on to our permit technicians. And then we also issued 1,100 new addresses. Our commercial review and site planning, we had 103 pre-application meetings. Something in Santa Rosa County that we do is if you're interested in building or developing a piece of property in Santa Rosa County, we have a pre-application meeting process that's set up. You can come in, you can meet with the county engineers, you can meet with county planning and zoning staff, as well as our building officials, and they can give you information and document things that you may be doing to make your changes there. We reviewed 94 commercial site plan applications, and 49 subdivision plat applications were reviewed. So our long-range planning staff does a variety of different things. They process our area master plans. They work with our local mitigation strategy task force. They're also part of the Pensacola Bay Estuary program that just started. They do GIS work, looking at trends, statistics, story maps. We do sidewalk and bike plans. And then our zoning board staff, they processed 183 applications last year, 36 rezonings, 22 conditional uses, and 12 special exception cases. And then our transportation planning staff, they handle our transit program as far as transportation disadvantaged. They serve as TPO technical support staff. They looked at corridor management plans for US 90, US 98, as well as sidewalk and bicycle plans throughout the county. So in general, our comprehensive plan and our land development code. Our comprehensive plan is very general. It looks at things in a 10 to 20 year time period and looks at the interrelationships of land uses, transportation, utilities, and recreation. Anytime we have a change to the comprehensive plan or the future land use change map, we are required by state statutes to send those applications to about 10 to 12 different agencies for review in order to amend those. Our land development code is more specific. It's more local based. Is the area where we look at lot sizes, landscaping, setbacks, buffers, and permitted uses within those districts. And it's more defined, such as your HCD, your neighborhood commercial, or your residential lots. And those require local BOCC review to amend. So if I can have IT click on the link. There's actually on here, this was developed by Santa Rosa County staff. If you click on here, it says Land Development Projects. It's on the county's website under Development Services. There is a link there that will pull up the approved commercial projects for this year, as well as subdivision plats that have been approved by the county. So you can certainly use that. Just talking with staff this morning, from just the presentation that I did on Monday, we've seen a high uptick of people taking a look at this website. So that's certainly beneficial on that. Thank you. So this is basically going in. It's a little hard to see up here in this map, but I wanted to run through the districts here. So you had District 1. These are subdivision plats that have been approved by the county commissioners over the past 10 years. You have District 1, moving into District 2, out in East Milton. District 3, mostly along, you see there, along Berry Hill and Quintet and Five Points intersection. Moving into District 4, down in Navarre. These are, again, the subdivisions approved over the past 10 years. And then moving into Commissioner Lynchard's district in District 5. So one of the things, and it's extremely hard to see here, unfortunately, Commissioner Lynchard asked that I provide a map regarding rezonings along Soundside. So certainly this is something that was produced by staff and that we can provide to you. There have been no rezonings approved on Soundside or in that general vicinity. There are a few, I don't know if I have a pointer, but north of US 98 you see a black and white checker. Those are the cases that have been approved, but there's a blue and black outline. Those are cases that were actually submitted but have been withdrawn. So they never proceeded to the Board of County Commissioners. They may have gone to the zoning board and then never moved forward. And then there's also a red and black outline, and those are cases that were actually denied by the Board of County Commissioners over time. So again, you know, the big thing is how can we assist? That's what we're here for, is to help you out, and whether that's residential or commercial development within the county, and as well as transportation issues and things. So if there's any questions from the commissioners or anything, I'll be happy to assist.
Sean, great presentation as usual. Do we have any commissioners got a question or? Okay, seeing none. Sean, if you'll stand by just a second, see, we'll open this if the public has any questions. I was approached by Edwin Henry and Ed Carson, and neither one of them gentlemen could be here today, so they asked me to read this in the record. Subject is Santa Rosa County Land Development Code. Dear Chairman, it is our understanding that the Board of County Commissioners has instructed staff to begin the process of going through the Santa Rosa County Land Development Code to update its provisions. This process has been a subject of the Chamber of Commerce, Santa Rosa County Chamber of Commerce, and has been very interesting in doing it for some time. Many of our members have expressed to us that the code needs to be updated and changed in many areas. There are areas that are confusing to local businessmen and areas that need to be updated and changed based on the provisions being impractical or out of date. We are writing this letter to request that we are given the opportunity to meet with staff to be able to bring our members' concerns we have collected over the past several years. We desire to work with staff in an amenable manner that would create a better LDC and benefit residents and businesses community as well. And signed by Ed Carson, he's currently chairman of the Santa Rosa County Chamber of Commerce Legislative Coalition. And, you know, both Ed and Edwin Henry have worked, you know, along with Sean and along with our staff. And you don't have to be a Chamber of Commerce or a member of a particular organization. You're a citizen of our county, and if there's something in the Land Development Code that you have a question about or feel needs changing, then the Board of County Commissioners through Sean Ward and his department is where you would take that to. So thank you for allowing me to read that in. At this time, is there anybody in the audience that has a question that Sean could probably help them with better than I can? So I'm sure. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Lawler, good to see you. Right in the middle there.
I'll push. Etta Lawler, 2532 Cedar Crest Lane, Navarre, Florida.
And you may have to talk into it a little better or else it didn't
Okay,
come
better?
on. Is the green light on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I see all the folks here with the SOS T-shirts on, and I sympathize with some developments that go in a neighborhood, but I encourage residents to look at the land development code, pull up your property, see how it is zoned, see what type district it falls in, and I might need Sean's help on this. I know there are special districts in the land development code, like you got the Garcon Point special district that needs special approval. I own property in the military airport zone. To subdivide that, I had to go through planning and zoning. It was a $25 fee, easy process. But I encourage these people to maybe come forth, work with Sean, do something maybe on the sound side, and come up with a plan for that area, similar to maybe the Garcon Point. That's the flood, has a lot of flooding issues, and get some of those properties tagged. I know in Navarre, first edition or second edition and whatever, there's properties that come up and they're flagged, where if you want to subdivide, you have to go to planning and zoning because they're basically swamps. So I encourage these folks to get with staff, Commissioner Lynchard, and come up with a sound side plan to save the flooding, because the more you build on those small lots, it just gets worse and worse. The ditch problem, the water flooding into people's homes and whatnot. So I encourage these folks to get with staff, come up with a plan for their whole sound side area. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Eda, thank you. Anybody else?
Leon Wynn, 4170 Syringa Way. Hello, Mr. Furman. Remember me? The man with the Alzheimer's? Okay. Mr. Thurman sent an email to the FDEP, to Elizabeth Orr, claiming I had Alzheimer's.
Okay, are we,
No, I'm getting to my point.
hang on just a second. We're talking about the
Yeah, I know what
land
we're
development
talking about,
code.
yeah.
We'll have public forum at the end, so if you have,
Mr. Ward, is it? Who made the presentation?
yes.
I think he said the local planning board has complete control over deciding what is developed and what's not developed. Is that correct?
No, sir, that's not correct. The local planning board simply reviews requests, votes on those requests, and in a lot of cases, moves them forward to the Board of County Commissioners. But they don't have jurisdiction over that. They just hear particular requests.
Well, I think he said they approved the development.
They can, but
They can.
they can
Okay.
approve it. But then after that, it comes to the Board of Commissioners for final approval. It's just a board that makes recommendations to this board.
Without
Not the-
citizen input?
Absolutely, sir. It's advertised, it's letters sent out if you're within a certain area around a particular question or request. You're notified. As Sean said earlier, there's signs put out, it's put in the paper, it's put on the website. So we get it out as much as we can. I had a lady yesterday call me and was upset about the bill she got for her fire taxes. And she wanted to know why she didn't have public input, which I could reply the same thing. We put it out as best we can, but we can't send out 160,000 letters to everybody in the county. It's just cost
There's
prohibitive.
newspapers and there's websites. And
We
there's
do
all
that,
kind
sir.
of media that you could put it on.
Yes, sir, we do that.
Getting back to what Mr. Ward said, I'm almost positive he said the board approves developments.
Mr. Wynn, if he mentioned staff approval of
Staff
developments.
approval, there you go.
If a developer meets all of the requirements of the land development code for the zoning district, then they don't need board approval. They don't need approval from this board to build a house or put in a development because they have met all of the requirements of the Land Development Code in the underlying zoning district. So if it's R1, R2.
So these people are qualified to make that decision?
Yes,
They
yes.
are?
It's a matter of ensuring that they've met the regulations in the code.
So a developer can go to the board, present their development, not the board, but the committee.
Staff.
Staff, okay. Goes to the staff and says, we want this approved. The staff can approve it without any input from the board or the citizens.
Yes, as long as it meets the requirements of the Land Development Code and the underlying zoning district.
And-
So if
and
you buy a property,
Why do we have state oversight?
if you buy a property in R1, in an R1 zoning district, you can build a house on that without coming to the board and getting approval for your house plans.
Great.
As long as you meet the requirements,
And same with the developer?
that's exactly right.
So the committee, when the developer presents their plan, the committee is responsible to approve that plan? Do they have any responsibility to involve the FDEP or the Army Corps of Engineers or the EPA
No.
in that development?
No, we do not
No.
have the
So
ability.
you take the developer's word?
We do not have the ability under state law to hold up or even consider the issuance of a permit from the DEP or the EPA or the Corps of Engineers in an application. State law prohibits us from considering those permits. We can't even delay the issuance of our permit to make sure they've received DEP or Corps permits. That's state law. The state legislature passed that back in 2011 or 2010. So our planning department can't even consider that. Now, we can tell the applicant, be aware that you may have to get permits from the Corps of Engineers or the DEP to lawfully construct your subdivision, but we can't withhold our permit, our development order, on that basis.
So you can give it a stamp of approval based on what the developer tells you?
Not based on what the developer tells us, based on if the developer meets the criteria set in the Land Development Code.
Well, I think that code needs changing.
Well, that's what this meeting's
Big time.
about. We're taking a good hard look at that.
Because the
And
state's
that's
gonna
what
look at
was
it every
just
7 years.
Yes, sir.
The state should come in and say, hey, this ain't right.
Okay. Well, and it's also up to citizens. I mean, we.
Yeah, but you don't give
we come up with
citizens any input when the committee approved the
No,
development.
no, you're calling it a
Citizens don't
committee,
have
and
any
it's not a
input.
committee. This is staff.
Staff.
When the staff reads something, and when you do your job and you're given instructions by the boss that you follow this book, then you follow that book.
So
Now,
you're telling the citizens of Santa Rosa County that the staff is qualified to make all those decisions.
the decisions were made in the Land Development Code. They're just following what's in that Land Development Code
So
book.
who
And
has oversight?
They're saying A matches A, B matches B, C matches C, and if all those things line up,
Who has oversight
this board.
on the committee?
There's no committee.
There's
It's-
no
it's-
oversight on the committee.
It's a staff position.
No oversight on the staff.
No, sir.
So we're supposed to sit here and believe that the staff is correct?
They
without
don't make a
citizen
decision.
input?
They follow a book.
Oh, well.
They read it out of the book. They don't toss a coin and make a decision on a coin toss. You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay. Sean, thank you very much for your presentation this morning, and as Sean said, we are going to be looking at the Land Development Code and all that. So that's the time that we need citizen input on different items, especially if it's in your area. So, any other questions? Any other comments from staff? Okay, we're going to close that subject and move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda was discussed on Monday very thoroughly and moved to the consent agenda. The items are Administrative Committee, Economic Development Committee, Engineers Report, Public Service Committee, Public Works Committee, and Budget and Finance. All those items that are listed for you and on the website were approved on Monday and moved to the consent agenda. At this time, I'll ask if there's any board members that has a particular item under those headings that needs rediscussed.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner.
I would just ask that engineering agenda item number 1 be moved to the regular agenda.
All right. All right. Anybody else? We'll move number 1, that's the P Ridge Connector Engineering Consultant ranking. We'll move that to the regular agenda here in just a few moments.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner.
I didn't know if anyone from the Panhandle Butterfly House was going to be speaking today during public comment.
If so, they can certainly do so.
Okay. I just had a comment that I wanted to make about that conversation.
All right.
Given
Then
some
we'll,
things that I've
okay,
seen.
then we'll pull number 3. Okay, we're going to move item number 5 back to the regular agenda. That's concerning the Panhandle Butterfly House. Is that okay with you, Commissioner Williamson? Is that where you?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Okay, so we're going to move item 5 under the regular admin and also number 1 under engineer back to today's agenda. Anything else? All right, with those items changed, Brandy, you got all that? All right, with those items changed, I'll move approval of the consent agenda without objection. Seeing none, it passes. Item 1 under administrative committee today will be the 2019 legislative priorities. This is a discussion of the development of the Santa Rosa County 2019 legislative priorities. We discussed these the other day. Gentlemen, I'll open the floor to the other commissioners. Commissioner Salter?
Mr. Chairman, when we discussed it the other day, was the continue to support our defense grant program. That'd be my only comment. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? All right. Seeing no other comments about the sorry.
I
Sam,
apologize. I accidentally left my list on the kitchen counter this morning for this item, but
yeah, your dog ate it on you.
I just wanted to ask, I guess really this is for Dan, do we need to leave on construction funding for P Ridge Connector since we've already identified funding, or would it be prudent to remove it or just
That's
leave it?
construction right now we have identified funding from the local option sales tax for the majority of that project. Some of that project would be funded by gas tax in the out years via loan, so this would prevent having to take that loan if we were able to get state funding to supplement the local option sales tax.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner.
I would like to make sure that we have an item on our legislative priorities about preserving home rule and strengthening home rule. The statute that I was citing earlier, Mr. Wynn, when you were up here, is an example of a statute that takes home rule away from the counties. It takes our ability to consider those items out of our hands. It prevents us from taking a look at external factors in development in Santa Rosa County. There is a constant erosion of home rule coming from the state, and it's a request that we make. It's kind of one of those that at the bottom of our bullet points, preserve home rule. But I think we should make a little bit more of an effort to ask our legislative delegation to maintain home rule and strengthen home rule. And if repeal of a statute such as that would be possible, that's something that we would have to pursue through our legislative delegation. So I would support adding the strengthening of home rule as a legislative priority.
I'll second that, absolutely. Appreciate that, Commissioner Lyncher bringing that to the board. Another very probably familiar example, especially for you folks down on Sunside, is years ago when Commissioner Lyncher fought so hard against the shooting range down there. I'm pretty sure y'all probably remember that. But the state has since preempted us from doing anything like that in the future. Your neighbor could shoot in his backyard, and as long as that bullet don't land on your property, he's not doing anything wrong. Now, if the bullet lands on your property, then you call the sheriff, and they could go after him for trespassing, because his bullet's trespassing on your property. But we can't, as a county. In fact, won't they fine us, Commissioner Lyncher? Yeah, we'll be fined if we try to preempt anybody from shooting on their own property, discharging a weapon. Then your county commissioners have no say-so in it. Your sheriff can't even do nothing about it. So we need your support to support these legislative priorities, especially the one that Commissioner Lyncher just added to the list, to tell Senator Brox and Representative Williamson that we want to keep some of these controls right here. We want to be able to go to our county commissioners and tell them, hey guys, we want you to do this or do something else, and not have us be able to tell you, hey, sorry, we can't. Our hands are tied by the state. There's things that we should, I agree 100% with Commissioner Lynchard. There are things that should stay right here at home for us and our citizens to make those decisions on. So, all right. Thank you again, Commissioner Lynchard. Good add. Anything else?
Just one other, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner?
I think I also want to echo, I appreciate you putting that on there. I'm very thankful for FAC and the work that they've done, more so now, obviously post-election than I was before. I can't go just because I don't want somebody to get excited off of what you said. There are some coverages in that statute. You've got to have adequate backstop, not primarily a residential area. So don't go home and start firing off a 40 cal in the backyard. The sheriff's office will come out, but but it does preempt municipalities. But I think it's adequately sufficient. The only one other thing I just wanted to ask the board for your input, you've all been dealing with it much longer than me, would we want to put in a priority based on Monday's discussion about some funding, I mean, especially since we're talking water quality, to help move that effluent discharge from the sound? Because obviously we got the update from Jacobs and we talked to the Gulf Breeze, but I think it was bluntly pointed out that there's a unfortunate gap from plan to identified funding. Is that something that we think would be good to put in there for water quality, or no?
I think, sir, I would caution just the city of Milton obviously has a very big legislative request and a very important project. So that's also important to us, and that's the upgrade and relocation of the Milton wastewater treatment plant. And I wouldn't want to appear to be competing with that. I would say we can hold that request for a year, where there's lots of design work and more coordination to be done at this point, and continue to support Milton's request that they're going to put forward.
And Mr. Chair, the Camden Drive, second phase of Camden Drive as well, that's been something that's been in front of the Ag and Natural Resources Committee a few times now. They're familiar with the project. We were very close to getting the funding last cycle. So that would provide another project in there for competition. I agree with Commissioner Parker's suggestion, but maybe we could find a portion of that project that could go into a non-competing silo and allow it to at least be introduced. Even if we don't get the funding this year, sometimes it takes multiple years to educate the legislature on a project. So maybe this would be the education year, with the understanding that we might have a better chance of getting funding in the subsequent session.
I don't know how you want to word it. I just very encouraged. I know the Panhandle obviously was very influential in these elections, and I think with Congressman Gates being on that transition team with the new incoming governor, I've been told that the Panhandle will obviously be remembered, is I think the wording that I got, and so hopefully that's why I just feel like we cast the net out there and see how that falls.
I'll work with John Johnson on how we best to engage in that discussion.
All right. Ms. Lawler.
Yes, really glad that brought up local policies. That's what I was doing. There's so many things that passing each year that are time consuming. I just looking back at that. All back and forth emails in that case. I had back and forth. And we still got a couple that lied to me about it wouldn't affect them. It costs every county. Okay. It cost every county a lot of money because they had to advertise in the paper to repeal their ordinances, and you went through a lot here. So I strongly urge you on everything. Just look at what they've passed the past few years. And also on the gun control, that's being challenged right now by several counties after the Parkland shooting to bring that control back to local government. Now, you've got to talk to our state representatives and stress to them, Amendment 1 failed. We all know what Amendment 1 would have done. But 67% of Santa Rosa's voters voted yes on that. Who supported Amendment 1? our Republican representatives in the state legislature put that on the ballot. If that passed, it would have affected your budget dramatically. So tell these state reps, stop beating on their chest about doing exemptions that should be under local county control. Because if that would have passed, just think of all these houses valued, you would have lost income. I don't know if you did a calculation on it. $4 million. So you gotta stress to them, don't just pass something that, looks good in the public eyes. And you gotta get up and fight. I don't know why if the rest of the state would have went with Santa Rosa's vote, you would have been in a pickle on your 219 budget. So stress to them. Doug Broxton, Jair, quit this crap. Okay? Thank you.
I think we've expressed that to both those legislators. It's our job now to express it to the rest of them. And speaking of that amendment, I want to applaud Dan and his staff because your staff at Santa Rosa County, your county administrator and budget finance department had already been looking at ways to curtail that hit. So, and as we said, it's almost $4 million a year that we'd had to instantly cut out of our budget. That means, degradation of services or whatever we'd had to do, because certainly you don't want to raise taxes. All right. Any other comments on item number 1? Seeing none, I'll move it without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item 2, event request. This is a discussion of the Pace Fire Department's request to use county right-of-way for annual Pace Christmas Parade. Mr. Administrator, everything in order on that?
Yes, sir, and the date is December 8th.
All right. Comments or questions? Seeing none, so moved. Item 3 is a recommendation of approval of the FBIP contract number 18079, approving up to $73,240 in grant reimbursement for replacement of the Woodlawn Beach board docking and authorization of $73,240 in matching funds from boater registration fee reserves and District 5 recreation funds. Comments or questions? Anything, Commissioner Lynchard?
No, Mr. Chairman, this is a necessary project to make some improvements and repairs out at Woodlawn Beach.
Okay. Seeing no other comments, so moved. Item 4 is a meeting list that's on the website, also on your hard copy here. We got meeting listed from November 12th through December 13th. Any comments, questions, or changes needed to be made to that list? Seeing none, so moved. At this time, we'll go to item number 5 on this agenda. Commissioner Parker.
You want to do?
I'm sorry.
Butterfly House, then come to him.
Yeah, Commissioner Williamson, I'm sorry.
Just had some brief comments about the Butterfly House topic following up from Monday. Just being honest, I was pretty disappointed with some of the comments that happened after that meeting. I think that staff and this board has done everything they can to be supportive of the Butterfly House. The idea that we would somehow be looking to take funding or not be supportive of the project, I think is a bit disingenuous. From the original approval in October to a subsequent reinforcement of that approval in May, and then at the meeting on Monday, this board, if they wanted to go a different direction, they've certainly had several opportunities to do so. I think that Dan and staff have tried to work towards solutions that I think are very fiscally responsible solutions, which basically take something that we all in Santa Rosa County believe in, which is growing our eco-tourism industry, and have identified an opportunity to have 2 organizations built for half the price. That seems like a pretty good deal. But along the way, I continue to see comments put out that as early as last night, there was a post that said, another organization is trying to take our funding. And that's just not reality. And I don't want people to see that and think that that's the case. The Panhandle Butterfly House has been an institution in Navarre and part of the community and a very valuable part of the community. Love to see that continue. But, where I once had confidence that they would be able to run a year-long sustainable operation and that they would be able to take on and pay for the expenses that they've never before paid for, where I once had that confidence, I no longer have that confidence now. And I hate that I'm handing this off to this board to decide on, but I did want to make sure that you understood, as the one that was championing the effort all along, I think that sometimes you have to do for folks what they may be unable to do for themselves. And I'm afraid that the decision makers of the Panhandle Butterfly House are playing a dangerous game right now in basically saying we want everything, but we're not necessarily willing to do what's required to show that we can justify having everything. So I think this board may have to make a decision to have them partner with another organization, or they may not have a future. And I think that would be the biggest mistake of all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Williamson. Other comments? Okay, I'll open this item to the floor. We got anybody who'd like to speak, and we don't need to rehash what we went over Monday. We know the feelings on each side. Since this was brought back to the table, I felt like Monday, two things I'd like to clarify, one on myself, and then I'll open it to other board members. I still am in support of building a new butterfly house. The location, to me, is important. The funding is still in place, but I never said it had to be built in the Navarre Park. But I will support funding at the best fiscal responsible place for our citizens. I thought on Monday we were going to allow until the first meeting in December for them to produce any kind of documents that would possibly permit them to achieve the goals that were set to operate the Butterfly House. Are we still on that course, or do we need to call a vote today?
I spoke with the executive director of Keep Santa Rosa Beautiful last night, told him I will be scheduling a meeting with him and the county extension advisor for this program and members of the executive committee, members of the executive committee of the Panhandle Butterfly House next week. I've received some questions and concerns from you all. I have my own, and I will present those to them, things that they need to answer, questions that we've had about the business plan and whatnot, next week.
Okay, so we can look forward to it being on the December meeting. Mr. Shebler? Okay, all right, thank you. All right, then we will conclude this on the first meeting in December, actually the only meeting week we have in December. As to the location, I believe the funding is still in place. I don't see any commissioners saying they're not willing to continue funding availability for that, but we need to go ahead and nail this down. And I feel like Commissioner Williamson that, you know, there's going to have to be some positive proof that they can sustain, and if not, then we have a secondary offer that I'm very comfortable with at this point. So, all right, any other comments, questions? If not, I'm going to close that item and we will wrap that one up in December. Commissioner Parker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to say thank you to the board for allowing me to have a few moments to reflect this. I would be remiss to not start off with saying, you know, I know we as commissioners know the volume of workload that we put upon our staff. Some folks in the audience don't. This particular item, I know a lot of folks here probably are not familiar with it, but our staff gets proposals like this on a monthly basis, and they're asked to look at highly qualified firms that all submit proposals that have been worked over by professionals. And I can tell you, I'm not going to lie to you and say that I've read every proposal that comes in, or nearly most of them. We don't. That's what we rely on, professionals. And I got to tell you, after taking the several hours to read through volume of these, have a much greater thankfulness for our engineering staff, our grant department, our administration staff that we ask to tackle these tasks on a nearly monthly basis on issues that will be generational, and they rank them sometimes in just like cases like this with where you're forced to choose between multiple firms that are all highly qualified, and the margin of difference is razor thin. Getting that out of the way, I did not speak Monday because I had not had the opportunity to satisfy myself with thoroughly going over all of these and actually reading them. I've had the opportunity to talk with Roger several times on this, as well as our county administrator, and for some reason I feel like God just keeps tugging at my heartstrings, and it reminds me of that same feeling where sometimes you just can't shake it, that even led me to take some big steps such as run for commissioner. So as the newest commissioner on the board, I've never been involved with a comprehensive roadway design that went from concept through design and then all the way through to construction. On this, I'd like to have every possible opportunity to evaluate, not just what's on paper with skills and experience, and but also, and communication abilities of each and every firm that was submitted. This will be one of the largest and most expensive projects to date that will be funded predominantly through local option sales tax dollars. I feel like it very likely will be one of the most impactful and truly generational projects that I potentially will ever be involved with during my time on this board. Part of my reasoning for bringing this up may be the fact that I'm so passionate about it, because I have worked on this since nearly the month that I was elected, and I know several commissioners on the board have seen this over the years. I had a note here just so I can stay on track and hopefully be brief. After spending several hours reviewing all the proposals from the 5 highest ranked firms by our county engineer and staff, I realized that all the firms are extremely capable of the task at hand. However, there are some interesting differences among some of the proposals that I would like to have explained further, and it's just impossible to do that on the printed presentation. Some of them vary not only in aspects of alignment within the right-of-way, but also the design approach, and even some of the timeline estimates vary drastically, as well as aesthetic considerations. Since the margins are literally razor thin in some of the scoring criteria that's reflected even on the top ranked firms, 2 of the rankers, they're literally 1 point apart. I just want to do everything that I possibly can to get the best roadway for our citizens. I'm deeply passionate about this project I've been working on for, like I say, nearly my entire time on the board. Plus, I also think the fact that if we were to have presentations, Commissioner Dave Peach would be on the board, and I think it would be helpful to have his insight since he has spent his career as a civil engineer. With that, I would just like to respectfully ask the board that we request presentations from the top 5 firms that scored the highest, and that we could potentially do that on December the 13th at 1 o'clock. That is our regular meeting day. We have a special zoning meeting that evening. I felt like if they had 30 minutes each that day for presentations, we may very well wind up back with the same firm. Again, this weighed heavily on my heart, so I wanted to ask so that I could feel totally confident that all the questions were answered and we got the best team for the job.
Would you feel comfortable doing the top 3, or do you want to do all 6?
The reason I'd said 5 even instead of 6 was all 3 grading members substantially, the number 6 ranked firm was substantially lower than all the other ones. I came up with a 30-minute concept of that's 2.5 hours, which is, for a project of this magnitude, significantly less time than we've spent on even some of the issues that have been discussed here today. I would be open to other suggestions, but I would like to at least include those top 5. I don't know that number 6 is necessary from the review that I went through.
Any other comments or questions from other board members? Seeing none, what's the wishes of the board? Do I have anybody? All right.
I'll make the motion without objection.
All right. Seeing none, so moved.
Just, I want to make sure, we're going to interview 5. Okay, and we'll schedule
Commissioner
those.
Parker requested the 5.
Yes,
so-
yes, sir. And I just say, if you need it for the record, those firms will be American Consulting, Atkins, Mott McDonald, Volkert, and Genesis. And I would propose that we try to do that on that 13th board meeting at 1 o'clock. Seems that we would have sufficient time before the zoning board meeting.
Okay, all right. Seeing no objections, it still stays in place. Thank you, Commissioner Parker.
Am I adding?
All right, the item that we're at now, you want to do it before or after forum?
Sure, do before.
Nope, okay. All right, we have another add-on from Commissioner Williamson. Commissioner Williamson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for letting me read this into the record. Today is my last meeting as, is it on? Yeah? That's weird. If my wife would hear, she would say that that's never been a problem, being able to hear me. So today is my last meeting as Commissioner for District 4, and it's definitely been a rewarding experience and one that has taught me a lot about people and myself. I want to thank my fellow commissioners, our county employees, and especially the 3 county administrators in the last 4 years that have tried to keep pace. Most of all, I want to thank my family who have sacrificed so much just so I could give 100% to this once-in-a-lifetime experience. I was asked a few months ago if I had any regrets or things that I would do differently, and in that moment, I didn't have a good answer. But given the benefit of time and some quiet reflection and prayer, I think there are a few things that come to mind that I would do differently. I definitely would not have taken that damn sign down. That would be one. I would have taken the advice of one of Commissioner Salter's childhood friends, Benjamin Franklin, and I would not have gotten a fight with someone who buys ink by the barrel. And probably the most important lesson came to me while on the side of Highway 98 when I was taking down my campaign signs after having lost the election. Some guy drives by in a Jeep and yells, "Loser!" And I'm pretty sure he was an undecided, but I keep in mind that, a few weeks earlier, I was in a meeting with about 10 people, and one of whom is now the governor of the state of Florida, and I thought, as I was on the side of the road, isn't this something that, a couple of weeks ago, I'm in a meeting with some of the biggest power brokers in Northwest Florida, and now I'm on the side of the road picking up trash, basically. And it was at that moment that I realized that the most important lesson that God was trying to teach me there was that importance of leading with humility, and that having the right vision or the correct vision or pathway forward isn't enough, that you have to slow down and take time to have others have the buy-in, to create a shared vision of what success would look like. And I'm very thankful to God for these lessons, and they'll definitely help me in the next opportunity, and showing me the experience of the last 4 years was not a setback, but a setup for something even better. And who knows, when folks look back on this time, maybe they'll say that we left it a little bit better than we found it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Williamson, and I got to say, the 4 years we've served on the board together, I found you to be a passionate and motivated county commissioner, and you'd made one mistake in your comments, and as far as giving 100%, I believe you've always given 110% to the citizens of Santa Rosa County. So, thank you. says that is the absolute worst picture she's ever seen in her life of me. So this is perfect. She'll love that. Thank you very much. Funny, he got that picture the same day we talked about shooting in your backyard. I guess you got something for target practice now. So, all right, at this time, I'd like to open the floor. If there's any other comments or questions or business to come before this board, I will open the floor to the public forum. Folks from the public like to speak. Edna, you've had your turn twice now.
Well, you don't come down this way very often.
I know. It's good to see you,
So
Edna.
I build up a list.
All right.
I think it's on now. Commissioners, on Monday, the YMCA of Northwest Florida made a presentation regarding a public-private partnership with Santa Rosa County, probably for the Y in PACE. Santa Rosa County government made a construction contribution of $200,000 for the Navarro Y. A Navarro resident donated the land to the Navarro Y for building the Navarro Y. Residents of Navarro raised thousands and thousands of money for the construction of the Navarro Y. Santa Rosa businesses donated a lot to the construction of the Navarro Y. The Y out of Escambia County for years has come before this board annually asking to snag $5,000, $15,000, $20,000 out of the District 4 recreation funds. At one time, the Y in Navarre had an advisory board that would make suggestions regarding the operation of the Navarro Y to the controlling leadership in Escambia County. A couple of members on that advisory board started scrutinizing where the Navarro Y's money flowed. So the Escambia leadership did away with the Navarro Advisory Board. The Navarro Y is a red-headed, neglected, mistreated stepchild. The Navarro Y has no voice. Everything is owned, controlled, and operated out of Escambia County. The Navarro Y, there's some that want it to come out from underneath that Escambia umbrella. Do not let PACE Y, if you build it, be controlled and governed out of Escambia County. I'm requesting you, I am against doing a public-private partnership with that outfit out of Pensacola unless things change. Some private partnerships work well, and many of them don't. Often government, that's you folks, don't properly do your research or protect the taxpayers more. Things get lopsided on the private partnership, the private's request, and often unfair. And it's the taxpayers that are the ones that get screwed. I know many residents in PACE want a Y, but don't put too much faith on any research study done by the Pensacola Y. Given the percentages the CEO stated, this study seems biased, distorted, and probably misleading. When I hear a study come up with 98%, 90% of the residents, I kind of scrutinize it a little bit. I do know for a fact many residents in the PACE area, I know many of them, and I know they want a Y. But on Monday, you asked the county administrator to continue discussions with the Pensacola Y to prepare a solicitation of a public-private partnership for a Y in PACE. I ask you today to add to that, get in touch with YMCA USA, their board, their website, it's all on the internet, to find out how to start a local chapter of the YMCA. Make a Y in PACE a community project, a success they can be proud of, and keep it controlled in Santa Rosa County. Learn from the mistakes that were made in Navarre. And if anybody wants to discuss any more about this, gladly do it with you. My second item, it has to do with like probably these builders on small lots. I don't like 98, so I cut through subdivisions. Builders that are building on these small lots need to be told not to block the roadway with building materials, vehicles, construction equipment, and yes, dumpsters. The classic was the builder that did on the north side of East River Drive. They built on both sides, a lot of houses going up at once, and it's between Pawnee and Panhandle. The builder constantly had the roadway blocked to one lane. Such things as building materials and roll-off dumpsters do not belong on this roadway. I traveled through there a lot, and I got so I jumped down a street or two because of that builder. One day I was heading to Walmart. It was the first day of school. Guy comes out, puts his hand up, and I'm like, what's going on here? I want to get to Walmart. I stopped. D&N dumped a roll-off dumpster right in front of me. It was a southbound lane heading east. I thought, unbelievable. And that was the first day of school, heavy traffic. There were about 6 or 8 cars backed up behind me. So I don't know how this falls. You talked about code enforcement on Monday. Maybe if they see such shenanigans going on, they should say something, and maybe it should come up if they repetitively do it, a fine, or somehow get that stuff off the road. And it might be even a road and bridge thing. I saw the road flooded there one day because they put little tiny PVC culverts in all those driveways. It backed up, and that heavy rain flooded across the road. They're out there with a gas pump trying to pump things out before you saw it. Or maybe it's the sheriff's problem for blocking a roadway. I don't know. But that was an extreme. I have seen it down on some of those other streets in that area when I cut through. One was a classic. The siding was right in the roadway. There would have been no way if you met the garbage truck.
Okay.
to get
And
through.
I think you brought a good point to the board, and I think any citizen, or any county employee, whether it be code enforcement or public works, anybody, those are public roads and they shouldn't be used for private, like you say, a dumpster or unloading. I mean, if it's like 10 minutes to unload something and get out of the way, that's different. But if it's anything, it's going to be much longer than that, impeding traffic.
Yeah, because I went all the
or
way to
sheriff and
Walmart,
everything.
did my grocery shopping, came back, the dumpster's still there.
Right.
The
Good
other
point.
day, I went to Fort Walton, it was yesterday. I cut through there to hit Panhandle, to hit 98. And two electricians' truck with cargo trailers were on the southbound side. I had to
Okay.
go around them. It didn't delay me. It wasn't busy traffic. But on my way back, the same trucks, same cargo trailers
Okay.
had that roadway blocked on the south side.
Right.
So that's what I have to say about that. And then the public emails that I get, I'm signed up for all your stuff, from the public information officer. You've switched kind of to like Civic Send, and I'm getting emails. The ones on the tire that came through the other day, I got the gist of it. But I used to like the old email format. I use Outlook, and then on my phone too. There was been some issues. Used to be able to, like, if you want to download the picture, when it came into email, you could click download, and you got the whole public information statement in your email. Didn't have to click on view in web browser. The tire one wasn't too bad, but the one that you had the county employee of the month there a few days ago, all you had was a subject line and nothing else in the email. And there was no link to click to that. So I don't know if you can change that format.
I'll check with the PIO office.
I don't know if
Yeah.
you have
got
any complaints, so, anyway.
Thank you. You brought a good point. I agree with you 100%. People shouldn't be using public right-of-way for, parking their
Yeah,
vehicles.
you might
or-
just tell these builders when they're, and
We'll see how we can get that message out to
zoning
them.
can
and-
probably get that message
more
through, because they can see, like, those builders, they pulled 10 permits in a little
All right.
in stress. Well, you might want to keep one of those vacant lots to put your crap on,
I agree.
so.
And on the first subject, I think you'll see a lot of changes coming. The new county administrative staff we have is a lot different, a lot more progressive. Mr. Walker and Mr. Gomillion did an outstanding job for the county, but as we continue to grow, I believe Mr. Shebler and his new staff is going to see a lot more progressive thinking in Santa Rosa County, and we have to. We got to keep up with the growth that we have in the county,
Right.
and I'm glad to have them on board now. So thank
Yeah.
you. Appreciate it.
And my subject about the Pace Y and stuff, that area really does need
And
some
that's what I
kind.
mean. Now, they will vet that
'Cause
pretty good before they bring it.
You
to
left
us.
no hooks in Navarre, so the public don't really have much say there.
Well, we'll get that.
One other thing, while these people are here, Land Development Code. You know me, Commissioner Salter knows me, Commissioner Lynchard. I used to be a booger going up there, and it all started on that, going to your meetings, because I was scared you're going to slip another landfill through. But anybody should look at their zoning around them. I always do before I buy land, and I look at who owns that 40 acres over there, and what are they going to do with it? What's it zoned for? And so I put some responsibility on the public. And then, like, I know you folks are really familiar with this. When I started seeing landfills go on top of my drinking water supply, I was up there to Milton all the time, and I want to thank you folks for listening to wellfield protection. And one thing, Commissioner Salter, I want to thank you on, is the pit district. Now that anybody in the north end of the county, we don't have pits down here, but they look and they say, oh, isn't that great? Look at that 40-acre parcel out there next door where I'm going to build my house. They can clip on a zoning map and see that's zoned pit. You want to invest in something that's zoned for a future pit? No. So I encourage these people to get with staff and get their area zoned for some kind of an overlay. We got enough of them in this county. You got the Wellfield overlay, Garcon Point overlay. Get a sound side overlay to protect the wetlands.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm Rod Miller, 1170 Seabreeze Lane, Gulf Breeze, Florida, 32563. I'm the president of Santa Rosa Shores Homeowners Association. I sent the gentleman an email regarding the city, the SSRUS and the city of Gulf Breeze decision to execute a contract for sale of the driving range of the golf course. We're very concerned about that. This is not a realistic problem here. We've got concerns with the environment, the safety. They're proposing that they create a road across the existing retention pond behind the Sonic Drive-In to give access to that traffic light there, I believe, for the neighborhood. And they're developing over 215 units, which would create over 400 vehicles in the area. That area, and I would ask you if you're not familiar with it, when you leave, if you go through the golf course, take a ride on Country Club Road and drive out through there, you'll see what I'm talking about. In addition to that, the other compounding factor is the sale of part of the west course to the golf course to the school board to create a school there, and then they'll need additional exits there. So we're going to add to the traffic problems significantly in that area. So we request that you look at this. We have some other concerns, and we're concerned that some of the individuals in the neighborhood that own some of this property is not willing to give it up and be, you know, for that concern. So appreciate your looking at that and make sure that some other alternative comes up with this situation, because Country Club Road cannot handle that volume of traffic. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Roger. Rod, excuse me. Anybody else?
Liz Pavlik, 4454 Armitage Road, Gulf Breeze. I just wanted to let you know that one of the members of our group could not be here today, Ellen Ward. She was in a car accident on her way out of Soundside Drive yesterday. She was broadsided as she was trying to pull out onto 98 by a young girl who was speeding. Both cars were totaled. Ellen has a fractured wrist, and she's going to have surgery now. She hurt her back and her ankle. So she's sorry she couldn't be here, but she wanted everybody to know how bad the traffic is out there. And I know I don't want to wait until somebody is killed out there before something's done about it. She's a good friend of mine. Thank you.
And ma'am, hate that anybody got hurt out there, and I know Commissioner Lyncher's been working diligently with FDOT to try to get anything we can done to relieve some of that.
Mr. Chairman, the intersection there of Soundside and 98, I don't know if Sean Ward's still in the back, but we have a standing request in essentially with FDOT to conduct traffic studies on that intersection. And as soon as it trips their warrants, their standards for installation of a signalized intersection, then we can move forward with that. But since that's state highway, we can't signalize it unilaterally. We have to partner with the state on that. The last traffic study they did, I believe it was in the spring, Sean? Is that, it was this spring. And we'll get them back out there as soon as we can.
Chairman, county commissioners, and county staff, thank you for the opportunity to address you today. I'm Paul Stagner. I'm the president of the Tiger Point Office Park Association. My address for my business is 1288 Country Club Road, which is adjacent to the driving range. So what I wanted to address and talk about today is my concerns for the city selling off the property. Number one, why is there an incentive to sell off the golf course property? We talked about that when they bought the golf course for their sewer treatment facility expansion, that they would keep it as a golf course. They partnered with Shroon Golf Course Management, which is operating it, and whether they make $1 profit off of the golf play at Tiger Point, they still pay a fee to the city of Gulf Breeze, and approximately $200,000 to $250,000 a year. So they're profiting on a business that was sold to a utility, number one, and now they're trying to break it apart and sell it as a development to profit furthermore. That's a concern for me for a business that's a utility to sell off a property. Selling off that property impacts a lot of the residents in the room and the community. They bought their homes to be associated with a golf course, not an apartment complex. And as we look at the plans that have been put forth, they want to put approximately 251 units there, of a combination of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. And to Rod's comment earlier, that's going to impact the roads heavily. 400 to 500 cars impacting the roads, which are already pretty tightly constricted with traffic in peak hours. If you think about that amount of cars coming out and only being able to go east without a traffic light, it's going to cause a lot of risk for additional accidents, which we have now in peak periods of the day along Highway 98. And furthermore, they're proposing to bring a road across the driving range and impact our office park association, which we own that, have ownership in that retention pond, and we have ownership in the right-of-way. For them to come out on Country Club Road, that would be very difficult and create a lot of congestion. There's not a right turning lane on that intersection. There's only a traffic light that allows you to go east or west or straight across. So a big concern. So Sean, as you look at that development plan, I would ask that you strongly consider the impact that it's going to have on the community and the roads. I've talked to our association, the ownerships of that retention pond. It's drastically needed because we've had a lot of flooding of our Office Park residents back in April of 2012. We had 4 of the businesses flood substantially with 4 feet of water. And it's always been a drainage issue in that area. So I'd say strongly consider looking at that development coming in. Number one, it's zoned as recreational to the best of my knowledge. And why would we want to change it to put in apartments? I know it's an incentive for tap fees and for the tax roll, things of that nature, but is it the right thing to do for the residents? So,
Mr. Stagner, I haven't studied the plans for the project there, but I do know those two pieces of property. One is zoned as PBD and one is zoned as PUD.
Right.
So, and those are unique in Santa Rosa County in terms of what can be done there. So we'll look into it, and I'd like to talk to you more about some of the things you
Sure.
mentioned with regard to the pond.
Thank you. And I know you mentioned earlier it puts a lot of stress on the staff to review these plans for engineering studies before you get too far down the path and they're proposing to bring a road across on someone else's property and to do away with the retention pond. That's a strong concern before you spend a lot of resources and man hours and funds that could be used elsewhere. I think you should really evaluate it hard, very hard. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And before we go to our next speaker, I'm getting a text message from
Okay,
somebody.
I'm talking on the same
Give me
subject.
just a
Is that
moment.
okay?
Give me just a moment, please.
Okay.
I'm getting a text message saying that the speaker is not on the website. I know we're seeing the speaker in this camera. Could somebody check on that? It says that we need to move the camera a little bit to the right so our website will pick up the podium. We're only getting this side. Oh, somebody correct that? Okay. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Ma'am, go ahead.
Is it on now?
I'll find out.
Can you hear me
just-
okay?
I'll find out just a second. It's my boss sending me the text message. So. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm Wanda Abshire, and I'm president of the HOA at Tiger Point. And I'm on the subject of the same thing with the apartments as well. For quite a time, we have been having accidents at Tiger Point Village because we have no red light. And I would talk to an officer not long ago, and he said he has addressed 200 wrecks at the Tiger Point Village exit. And with the traffic being so bad in our area that we can't even get a red light there, for these apartments to go in, it would really be detrimental to everyone coming out. As a matter of fact, I was going to address it and contact you guys about trying to put a red light at Tiger Point Village that would coordinate with the red light at Walmart. What happens is a lot of people will stop when the red light at Walmart stops as they're going east. When we try to come out, two of the lanes will stop and let us out. But we almost got dead hit hard and probably killed not long ago because someone let us through the 2 lanes, and then all of a sudden this pickup truck comes barreling through the 3rd lane and almost hit us. And then there was a young kid in our neighborhood recently. 2 people let him out. They let him go across the 2 lanes, but the 3rd lane, which was a turn lane, the guy hit him. And this is we do have a lot of traffic through there, and we certainly don't need these apartments and having more traffic come out with another red light being one at Sonic and then, one at Walmart in between, except for the one, it is really, really hard for the safety for people in that neighborhood. So when the apartments is considered, I really think you guys need to think about the traffic and the red lights in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Make sure you please have a speaker's form filled out to turn into Brandy.
I'll do that. Thank you.
And
My name is Lynn.
If you're going to speak, if you'll come up there to these front rows so we know how many more speakers we have, please. Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Linda Young. I live in Navarre, and I just have 2 comments I'd like to make, and I'm going to try very hard not to offend the chairman today. First of all, you know, I come to these meetings, or I watch them on the internet, and week after week and month after month and year after year, I see citizens coming to you and pleading with you for better planning and to do something about the traffic problems, the water quality problems. That's what I always come here for. And usually the problem that you push back with is the money, the lack of money to do things. And so it baffles me, it just baffles me that a county like Santa Rosa County that is growing so fast, one of the fastest growing counties, and not just recently, for a long time now, in the state and even in the country, and we don't have any impact fees for our growth. It makes me want to cry sometimes when I think about the money you are just throwing away. And I don't know if you think that that's going to, you know, slow down development, or it's going to have some adverse effect on the economy of this. You're not going to slow down growth with an impact fee. People are going to keep moving here and keep moving here and keep moving here. And I don't know, maybe you have some wonderful reason that I have not heard. But for roads and for schools and for stormwater infrastructure and for many, many, many important items that your constituents come to you begging for help and begging for relief, you could get a lot of money from impact fees. And I'm sure that all of you go to the FAC meetings and you have an opportunity to talk to many commissioners around the state, and you can easily ask them what their impact fees are in their counties. You know, in a lot of places, they're like $17,000, $20,000, $24,000 for a single residence. And it's not slowing those counties down one bit. And we're every bit as nice or better as a place to live. So whatever it is, I just ask you guys to try to rethink that. It would give you a lot of money. So that's my one comment. My second comment is I saw on the agenda, I don't know if it's going to come up here today or not, but it's on your agenda to approve Commissioner Ralph Thomas from Wakulla County as the co-chair or the assistant chairman or whatever of the FAC.
Yes.
And I just wanted to say that I have worked with Mr. Thomas extensively in recent years on some very difficult issues in Wakulla County, and I'm glad to see that he's taken a leadership role in that organization. I think it's a fine organization. I've worked with it for decades. It does a lot of good in this state. And Mr. Thomas is the kind of person that listens to people, listens to his constituents, and he cares about the natural resources, especially the water quality for Wakulla County, which is not that different than Santa Rosa. Their economy is very tied. They have to have clean water. And when I first went to the commission asking them, I think he was the chairman, asking them for to take some proactive steps against a very big polluting industry in his neighborhood to help us prevent massive pollution from it. 4 of the 5 commissioners, the 4 Republicans, were very much against what I was asking them to do. But Mr. Thomas took the time and made the effort to educate himself. He just about pushed me over the edge for 4 months with emails wanting more and more and more and more information, and he read every bit of it. And at the end of that 4 months, he led the vote 5-0 to approve what I was asking them. And then he took the initiative because he had learned so much because of his basic caring nature for his county, that he took a further initiative to speak out against, or speak, I should say, in support of some work that we were doing to try to protect statewide waters from toxic. So I'm glad to see him taking a leadership role, and I'm sure all of you will be glad to support him as I do. Thank you.
I do next.
Good morning. My name is Darlene Hartigan, and I'm the president of Save Our Soundside, which is now a nonprofit corporation. I would like to start with a statement that I trust we can all agree with, and that is that the county needs to make public safety its first and primary concern in the permitting process for all development projects. And regarding the northern exit of Nature's Cove, which we discussed the last time that I was speaking in front of you at the last meeting, the people in the area of Soundside Drive do not feel that public safety was given its due in making that decision to abandon that northern exit and make Soundside Drive the sole entrance and exit for all 3 phases of the subdivision. I'm going to try to see if my PowerPoint will come up. Sure. There was an application for the subdivision dated 4/30/14 that states as follows. The site will have 3 access points from the south and 1 connection to the north as depicted on the attached proposed development plan. And we'll get to the development plan in just a second. This is a letter from Santa Rosa Development Services recapping a meeting. This letter is dated 4/25/14. The meeting was between county officials and the developer, setting forth requirements for them to proceed with the project. And one of those requirements at number 8 was interconnectivity to parcel 262 S28 and 6 zeros and 4 6 zeros, currently owned by Total Concept, will be required. This will include a visible stub out to the property line. And this is the northern exit that we're talking about. Okay, if you will see on the far left, the western side of the plat map, that's Nature's Cove. The other first 2 phases have already been completed. In Nature's Cove, you see where the red arrow is, that was the map showing the stub out for the northern exit that would go to Highway 98. Okay, this is the Total Concepts property. That was a PBD, planned business district that was designated by the county with frontage on Highway 98, and that's where that stub out was supposed to go and then exit out onto Highway 98. This is the plan that was presented to the public, but it's not the reality of what's happening. Soundside is bearing the total traffic burden for all of the subdivisions. The only way in and out of Nature's Cove is on a blind curve in an area that now floods due to displaced water, which is caused by the construction, and so therefore is now no longer useful as an evacuation route. This map that I brought up, I didn't necessarily mean, okay, no, that's the same one, never mind. The green on that map is wetlands, by the way. So, and that's one of the county's maps. The best solution that the public feels for public safety is to stop construction and go back to the original design with the northern exit of the subdivision onto Highway 98 and proceed with that. And we think that that's a reasonable request. We don't know why the change was made or when the change was made, but we've all been expecting all this time for there to be a northern exit out of those subdivisions. Okay, the next point that I have is more of a comment and a question on paving out there on Soundside. There was a staff analysis report done on the project. And I don't have it, but I will tell you that it was at Part 2, Subdivision A, Paren 1. This was regarding the impact of all the additional traffic on Soundside Drive. And the staffer at Santa Rosa County that worked on the project said, the board may wish to require the applicant, the developer, to provide mitigation for the impacts on Soundside in the form of an engineered plan for bicycle pedestrian improvements. Alternatively, the provision of funding for installation of improvements could be considered for mitigation. Now, that's the comment, and the question is, did the developer provide and pay for that engineering project, or did we, the taxpayer, pay for it? And as an alternative to actually pay for the improvements, did they pay for the improvements on the bike and pedestrian walkway along Soundside Drive, or did we, the taxpayers, pay for it? And the reason we want to know this is, you know that we have all been opposed to this development, and so we do not want our tax dollars subsidizing these kinds of things. We don't want to help increase their sales or their profits, and if they come to you with a plan, you're talking about all these plans that you have to review, and they say that they're going to pay for something, we are hoping as tax-paying citizens that you will require them to pay for it and not for us to pay for it.
Ms. Hardigan?
Yes.
The expansion of that bike path on Soundside Drive didn't have anything to do with this development. That expansion was done because the residents of Soundside contacted me to extend the bike path from its current, from its then terminus near the western end of Soundside on down. So we were able to do that in conjunction with that repaving process. We did that at the behest of the residents. We didn't do that because of the development that was going in out there.
Well, I think for a long time, people along Soundside, especially on the east side of Soundside, have been wanting the bike path extended. In the spring of the year, I don't know if it was by rumor or what, everybody was alerted to the fact that we might lose the bike path. Then I know you guys got a lot of inquiries about that. And
I have no idea how that rumor started.
I don't either.
That we would get rid of an existing bike path.
Well,
but that's the danger of Facebook and online rumor and innuendo. There was never a plan to eliminate the bike path there.
I think that somebody heard or said that the road was going to be widened because of the traffic and that we would lose the bike path. That didn't happen, and we're all very, very glad about that. But what I'm reading here is from the staff analysis report. So that's why I'm asking the question. As I was reviewing documents in preparation for this, I read this, and I knew that the repaving of the bike path, the roadway and the bike path had just taken place. So did we pay for it? Did the developers pay for it? Did the developers pay for an engineering plan? This came out of the, out of the staff analysis report, so it's a question.
And I'm not sure what you're referring to there, but the bike path was paid for by the county.
Okay.
It was not paid for by the developer. It had nothing to do with the development. It was solely done at the request of the residents out there.
Okay. Thank you. I do want to make a comment about code enforcement. At the last meeting, we learned that Santa Rosa's Code Compliance Department had no funding or staff for code enforcement. By the date of that meeting, which was Thursday, October 25th, the developers of Nature's Cove had been clearing land for 2 days with no permits posted. That appears to be a violation of Florida Administrative Code 62-330.350, as does the absence of erosion and sediment control being in place prior to construction. And we depend on the county to police these things. And just this week, we've watched red clay being hauled in, and the storm water from the rains, the runoff of construction debris and other things make its way into the sound. And we are anxious to hear a detailed report from code compliance regarding the ongoing manner in which the construction is being carried out on the site. And, you know, we don't just mean so-and-so went out to the site and he looked around and everything looks okay. And we just take that as, you know, at face value. We would really like to see something that says he checked this and this and this, and they're in compliance. We had a question about that. We called him out on this. We made him fix it. You know, that's what we would like to see, because it's all posted and he's got signs out there, surveillance cameras are, you know, being used, do not approach. So we can't take pictures anymore or anything. So, let's see what else I've got on here. Not sure where I'm supposed to point this. Okay, this is a flood zone area along Soundside, all of the hatch marked area, and you can see it reaches pretty far back into the property that's being developed for the 3 phases of the subdivision. Okay. Clearing at the site of Nature's Cove is ongoing at a breakneck pace. They clear on Saturdays and they clear in the driving rain. Soon there's going to be nothing left and no ability for the developer to mitigate the deforestation of the land unless you guys require him to plant trees. And if we seem frustrated about this project, it's because we are. Dick Godwin was the owner of all that property, and that nice lady mentioned, you know, we're all supposed to look and see how the property is zoned before we buy in there. Well, I just want to make mention so that you'll get some perspective from the homeowners that live in there. Dick Godwin said he was going to be the developer of that property. It was going to be named Soundside Farms, and there was going to be 1-acre lots and 5 nature preserves. Baby Doll Nature Preserve, Maud Meadows, Domino, and several others. There were all the spring-fed lakes that are in there that are now being made retention ponds and reconfigured into retention ponds. They were going to remain pristine for the use of ducks and turtles and other wildlife. And there was going to be a green belt 48 feet wide along Soundside Drive that would be kept in a natural state. But things change, and Godwin sold to a tract builder. But the rest is not history, not yet. Everyone in South Santa Rosa has always known that development was coming, but no one ever thought that this peninsula that we live on would be developed with no consideration for prudent stewardship of the land, and that there would be no special protections given to the Gulf Coastal Lowlands Habitat Area, and that we would have to stand by and over our objections, see the landscape denuded and destroyed for the benefit of out-of-state developers. These same developers who have at least 3, maybe 4 projects slated for this Gulf Coastal Lowlands Habitat Area. So we want a new master plan, but that takes time, like you told me last time. So we want something else first. We want one of those special area plans or a special overlay district to protect the Gulf Coastal Lowlands Habitat Area. The tree ordinance is a good place to start, and that needs to be done right away. Trees do not grow to a width of 5 feet in diameter in the sandy soil of this peninsula. It's low in mineral content and nutrient content here, and the current tree ordinance is short-sighted for many reasons and for every part of Santa Rosa County, because by the time a live oak tree is 5 feet in width, it's outlived its lifespan. It's ready to die. So that tree ordinance needs to be fixed right away. And they're clearing right now. So, I mean, this is something that is not very complicated and that can be done in the short term. We want, along with that special area plan, that overlay district, we think that a moratorium on approval of construction plans for development needs to be implemented, and we need to stop approving development right now until we get our act together and ensure that development activity in flood zones is compliant with state and federal regulations, and that we have qualified people in place to make those determinations, and when they say that it's not compliant, they have authority to take action. You know, according to the Florida Department of Emergency Management, they don't think that that's the case. And we believe that that's not too much for the citizens of Santa Rosa County, South Santa Rosa, to ask. At Monday's commission meeting, or committee meeting, Rhonda Royals said permitting was blowing and going. It's blowing and going. And, you know, the people are saying, please stop, please halt, please slow down, take a breath, let's do this right. We have a beautiful place here. But if we just keep on, there's going to be nothing left that was the original reason why everybody moved here in the first place. It's a sandbar. It's an overgrown sandbar. You remove all the trees and vegetation, and the sand washes into the sound. We all moved here because we love the area, the lifestyle, the wildlife, but it's fragile. The sound is suffering. We are willing to pay extra taxes, endure hurricanes and other natural disasters, but we have no patience for man-made ones. And I'm going to show you the trees that are being demoed right now, because this is the last time anybody's ever going to see them. There's more than one.
Maybe not.
Well, maybe not now. Okay, there's one. You see how heavily wooded the whole area is? That's a giant angel oak right there. Beautiful canopy tree. There's really no reason just to go in there and bulldoze all that. Not when it was supposed to be. It's called Nature's Cove. Nature's Cove. Unbelievable. That, I couldn't get close enough to it. That magnolia is giant. It's giant. So, that one's pretty big. Yeah, Sandbar Cove. My clicker's not working well. I might not be pointing it to the right place, but we're almost through them. That's pretty big oak right there. That's all. Thank you. I'd like to know if maybe the pictures can be put in the record. I do believe, Commissioner Lynchard, you sent those pictures to be put into the tree survey?
You forwarded all those pictures to me. I sent them to our planning and zoning department. So,
Okay.
yeah, they are public record at this point. And we agree with you. I think the board discussed it on Monday. Our tree ordinance is inadequate, and we've directed staff to update our tree ordinance. And we'll move forward as expeditiously as we can to get that done. But you know, it was part of the land development code probably when it was originally enacted back in the late 80s.
And that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
Changing the land development code, making a special area. You know, I understand that in years past, on the east side of Soundside, where the sound development, sound forest development is, there were archaeological finds there that are registered with UWF Archaeological Department. It was Indian skeleton and some other artifacts. But they took the bulldozers out there before the archaeologists could get the site. I don't know how they do it, but
It
before
doesn't
they could
happen
get
that
out
way
there.
anymore. Those are flagged in our GIS, and we talked about GIS on Monday, and there are protections for archaeological areas, sensitive areas like that now. But our land development code should be something that is reviewed regularly, and when we identify problems such as the tree ordinance, then we address it, and we'll be working towards that, absolutely.
So how do we work on this overlay, this district, this special district? What do we do? What's the first step? How can we start, and when?
We have to figure out what the purpose of the overlay district is.
To preserve the Gulf coastal lowlands habitat area. It's not everywhere, and I'm not saying that there will never be any development there, but it probably won't be 4 houses per acre. But that's okay for just this special area. We need to involve some ecologists and biologists, and you guys have money for these kind of things.
Well, the difficulty is that property for 30 years has been zoned R1, which allows 4 houses per area. So that is the reasonable expectation that that property owner has, that they can develop their house to four houses per acre. Now, if there are wetlands on the site, my understanding, Santa Rosa County won't let them convert wetlands to uplands through mitigation and create lots. So, they're limited by the amount of uplands on their site. But when we do special exceptions and rezonings, we can't do it in a vacuum. And I'll give you an example. Tonight on the planning board meeting, and if we're running late here, I'd be glad to stay after the meeting and talk to you about this. Tonight at the planning and zoning meeting, there's an application for a special exception on Soundside. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that or not. Well, let me explain that. It takes one lot that doesn't have enough frontage on 98 to qualify for division into multiple lots. And there's a special exception to allow 3 lots on that property using a private drive onto Soundside Drive. And Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but this will allow them to create 3 houses there through a special exception. That property is 20 acres. There's 9 acres of uplands on that property. They could, without coming to this board, engineer a subdivision and build 36 homes on the uplands in there. Sean, is that correct? Yes. They could, without any approval, no variance, no special exception, go through our subdivision process, and they are entitled by law to put 36 houses in there. So what would you rather see? 3 houses with a special exception that the board has granted, or 36 houses where we don't approve anything? It just gets built because they meet the requirements.
Well,
the 11 acres of wetlands would not be touched. I mean, it's...
That property that you're talking about is right next to the preserve, and there is a lake on it, and it should not be zoned R1 anyway. That's part of the changes that need to take place. Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do it. And this is an area that's in a flood zone, and it should be a special exception area. And I don't know if you have to take it on a case-by-case basis or not, but things change as development happens. We've got flooding now in the existing homes on Soundside that never happened before phase 1 and 2 of this project. It's because of phase 1 and 2 of this project that we now flood. And so things change. And I know that you're supposed to look at this land development code every 7 years, In 2017, it was updated, but we're asking for another update. We're asking for something special, something that preserves this Gulf coastal lowlands area. And anyway.
And I'll be glad to work with you and see what we can do.
Thank
But
you.
again, there are private property rights at stake with the people who own the property in there.
I understand.
If you owned a lot beside, if you hadn't built yet, and you bought a lot in Soundside and came in and somebody said, well, I don't want you to cut those trees down, I don't want you to build a house, your reasonable expectation when you bought that property was that you were going to be able to do what was allowed under the zoning.
Well, I wouldn't cut all the trees down, and I would not
get
flood
you.
my
I
neighbors
understand.
with my construction.
I understand.
So, anyway,
What I-
but thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I got,
Hello, I'm Kendall Creighton, and I live on Sabine Court off the 4600 block of Soundside Drive between Nature's Cove and the waters in a 1973 house that's experienced recent flooding problems, which city services seem to say is my problem and build your own moat. That is, dig an illegal ditch and channel storm water from the construction enhance flooding into the bayou. So we're losing faith with our elected officials, and that's why we're here. My neighbors say just read the email from the Santa Rosa County Public Works Director, Mr. Stephen Furman, because it sums up the back and forth and a little bit of the insanity that we're experiencing. It says, this is Tuesday, November 6th. Dear Ms. Creighton, we appreciate your patience as the Road and Bridge Department has been investigating the roadway and yard flooding on Sabine Court. We also appreciate your sending the video of the flooding as it confirms our findings. As you describe in the video, there is currently no outlet for the water on your street to flow into the Sound or the bayou. A review of the record plat of the re-subdivision of a portion of the Soundside subdivision that includes Sabine Drive and Sabine Court indicates that there are no platted drainage easements that connect the street drainage to either Santa Rosa Sound or the Duck Bayou. The lack of any legally dedicated drainage easements presents the county with a significant challenge in being able to channel water from the Sound or the bayou. As your video illustrates, the lowest area is along the street and in the neighborhood is in front of your home and in front of your yard. The lack of any legal route for the county to drain the water from this low spot is a significant challenge to us. We have no historical knowledge that there has ever been a defined route for the stormwater to flow away from the street, so we have no current means to divert the water to a discharge. Based on your video, it may be possible for you to create a channel around your home to successfully create a pop-off for the water to flow into the bayou. This channel would be on your private property, and you would provide some relief to the yard flooding while other options are explored. We have contacted the Building Inspection Department to research how this construction across the street may have affected the flooding on your street. But we are also curious as to your historical perspective as to how the drainage used to function. And so the historical perspective is that it never used to flood before the waters and the Nature's Cove and the reserve. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Good morning. It's still morning. Chairman Cole, congratulations on your reelection. We look forward to continuing to work together with you and your colleagues in the spirit of working together. Commissioners, appointed members of government, and citizens of Santa Rosa County, I'm Michael Brower. I'm a Santa Rosa County taxpayer and Vice President of Save Our Soundside, a Florida not-for-profit corporation. I want to talk to you today about the actual risk and associated problems of construction and development enhanced flooding, stormwater runoff, septic to sewer conversion, and their effects on the Gulf coastal lowlands ecology of the Fairmont Peninsula in and around our Soundside community. Columbia University engineering researchers have demonstrated for the first time that runoff extremes have been dramatically increasing in response to climate and human-induced change. Their findings, published on October 22nd, 2018 in Nature Communications, shows a large increase in both precipitation and runoff extremes driven by both human activity and climate change. They noted the different responses of precipitation and storm runoff to temperature can be attributed not only to warming, but to factors like land use and land use cover changes, water and land management, vegetation changes that have altered the underlying surface conditions and hydrological feedback, which in turn have increased storm runoff. This research-based finding is no news to the 250 members of Save Our Soundside, since the clear cutting and compaction of the waters and the preserve and the development of more and more impervious brown coverings and channelized non-state-of-the-art catchment systems, they're fighting flooding not only with the 11 inches of rain this year with Tropical Storm Gordon, but from typical 1.5 to 2.5 inch cloudbursts. One neighbor related to me how channelized stormwater hemmed in by artificially raised lots and poorly engineered berms and outflow spillways around a retention basin that used to be a kettle pond in the waters has cut a bed into their Soundside Drive property and now regularly floods their driveway, yard, and foundation. An engineer now working on the matter with them blames the flooding on flawed engineering design decisions of the fundamental layout of the water's stormwater pollution and runoff prevention infrastructure. The same engineering that planned the waters, the preserve at the waters, and Nature's Cove. Not the engineer working with them, but the same engineer did the waters, did the preserve at the waters, and Nature's Cove. Another Soundside neighbor you just heard about, and she's got a foot-deep lake from stormwater runoff. Imagine buying a house and moving to the Sound and being very happy you're there, and then turning around, getting up one morning after Gordon comes through and find a foot of water flooding your entire neighborhood. Save Our Soundside asks the County Commission to ensure that the Nature's Cove property is properly engineered and inspected, and that your compliance, red shirts, and staff make frequent visits. The engineering needs to pay attention to the impervious and unsafe and unwise planned Nature's Cove southern entrance and exit. As it stands, not only is that entrance and exit on a blind curve, but it sits up a slope directly going onto Soundside Terrace, which is a private road, but it's sitting right there, comes right down. And when it starts flooding, because it's going to start flooding, because they're clearing and compacting the ground, all of those people on Soundside Terrace, the 5 houses there, will be flooded and will, to quote the flood ordinance, section 10.13.7, result in a harmful and editorially prohibited diversion of floodwaters, which would increase damage to adjacent buildings and structures. In our Gulf coastal lowlands, which is the sandbar that we live on, heavy rainfall can combine with storm surge to cause what they call a compound flood. High water levels from storm surge and exacerbated by sea surface rise can impede stormwater draining into the sea, causing flooding inland, or high rainfall can add yet more water to an existing tidal flood. Now, all of the Soundside community's stormwater runoff drains into the Santa Rosa Sound. Coastal flooding is exacerbated by human influence in coastal environment because development and urbanization. That means more impermeable surfaces, removing trees, removing large amounts of coastal habitat biomass, which reduces the water intercepted and increases runoff into our overburdened, inadequate, typically 50 to 60 years old stormwater drainage system. Actually, the stormwater drainage system first put in was the best because it was a natural system. But now we've added structured systems that pour into that natural system and overpower it. Additionally, extraction of water from groundwater reservoirs in the coastal zone for lawn irrigation can enhance the subsistence of the land, increasing the risk of flooding. There's only a finite amount of water in the water table, and if we put more and more houses up there and they all sink wells, then the ground will give away and go back to the sound. Finally, climate change can affect the coastal areas in a variety of ways. Coasts are sensitive to sea level rise. We are seeing a change in intensity and frequency of storms, increases in precipitation, and warmer ocean temperatures. Our area averages 66 to 75 inches per year of rainfall, and all of it ends up in Santa Rosa Sound, either by percolation into the very shallow water table or stormwater runoff. Runoff can come from both natural processes and human activities. Stormwater runoff includes all debris, chemicals, and other pollutants picked up by the rain. Runoff occurs when there is more water than the land can absorb. Once upon a time, our undisturbed coastal lowlands habitat was adapted for soaking up heavy rainfalls, but subdivisions are not adapted for that. Runoff from human activity comes from 2 places: point sources and non-point sources. Point source pollution is any source that empties directly into the waterway. That might include a pipe from a septic sewage treatment plant, or even a home with an overburdened sewage holding tank immobilized by more than a day of power outage. Non-point source pollution is any source where runoff does not flow directly into a waterway. Non-port sources of runoff can be across large urban, suburban, or rural areas. In these areas, rainwater and irrigation wash chemicals into local streams or structural drainage systems. The runoff from non-point solutions include lawn fertilizer, car exhaust, and even spilled gasoline from cars. Impervious surfaces, or surfaces that can't absorb water, increase runoff. Subdivision roads, sidewalks, and parking lots are impervious surfaces. Runoff is a major source of water pollution. As the water runs along the surface, it picks up the litter, petroleum, chemicals, fertilizer, and other toxic substances, including microplastics. Our beaches, even in Pensacola Beach, are regularly closed after heavy rainfalls because of runoff that includes sewage and medical waste. These chemical pollutants can harm not just the beach, but entire ecosystems. Tiny microbes such as plankton or algae absorb the pollutants of the runoff. Fish or shellfish consume the microbes or absorb the pollutions directly. Birds consume the fish, increasing the pollutants in their own bodies. This process...
Sir, excuse me. We got a problem on Soundside Drive, and you're giving us a lesson in ecology. And I'd like for you to wrap it up now. I think we presented a good case for a problem on Soundside Drive about the runoff, about the pollution, but we don't need to continue getting a lesson in ecology this afternoon. So I'd appreciate, let's stay on the subject of that and discuss what we can do to correct this problem. If we immediately started working on a tree ordinance, we couldn't do anything to stop what's going on down there now. So, but I do have questions and stay pertinent to that I'd like to address with the engineering department is why we have the runoff that you're experiencing when they're supposed to control that. Why do we have a lady that was just here said that she did not have water in the yard prior to this development going in? Why the stub out was taken off the board? I'm all in favor of us doing a closer monitoring on this and making sure they're not getting away with things. So, and why, if it was a natural spring or a lake before, why can we allow them to turn that into a holding pond? Those are the things we need to stay pertinent on. But
well, then we'll stay pertinent to those points.
Please.
One of your commissioners said that...
I've just asked, Roger, why are we experiencing that? If we got all these things in place, we shouldn't be up here listening. I can understand nobody here on this board or this staff can say, okay, you cannot go in there and cut down that tree. That's their right. We're beyond that. But we can say, like I said, why was the stub out taken off the table? Why are we experiencing runoff problems? We touted all the time that Roger Blaylock came up with a great plan years ago to do a 100-year storm event where the state's only 25, but a couple times recently it's kind of backfired on us. And I know it's in a process in works, and that takes place after the process is done. But is there something we need to be doing better during the construction project to avoid situations that we're having here today?
I'm not fully... No. Am I still on? Can you hear me?
I find these mics, you got to get right up into the mic.
Okay. I'm not prepared to answer all of the questions that you just described today, but I can tell you, as it relates to the northern connection, the Nature's Cove subdivision has a platted stub out to the vacant property to the north. As Commissioner Lynchard, I think, discussed in a previous meeting, that is private property. That private property connects to 98, and nothing in our LDC says that a developer of property must go onto someone else's property and construct a roadway.
But I've been told also that stub out's been since changed to a lot. If that's not the case, then
I'm going to tell you, I'm looking at the preliminary plat right here in the construction plan, so I don't have anything to refute that statement, but it's not my belief that that's converted to a lot.
Okay, 'cause I'd like to answer some of the questions that they have, and if it's still a stub out, then we could take that off the table.
No, it's a lot.
Okay, then
It has now been converted in the plats that we have, which I got to be the plats that you have. It's a lot now.
Okay,
It's
all right.
lot 35.
Let's bring the questions to bear, and then allow staff to have time. We're just not going to pull answers out of our pocket. Present a question. If staff can answer it right now, we'll answer it. If they can't, then I'll ask Mr. Schreiber to get with our staff and get answers pertinent, answers directly to direct questions. And Edna, I'm going to take this gentleman, and he's our last speaker. He's our last speaker.
Well, I've got some other things to say that are direct.
Are they direct questions?
They are direct questions.
Okay, please do that.
Mr. Lynchard can confirm that I asked a lot of questions.
That's fine.
Mr. Lynchard can confirm I asked a lot of questions. If we are supposed to be protecting the wetlands, how did the waters and the preserve at the waters and now Nature's Cove, how are they eliminating wetlands and kettle-fed spring ponds without any mitigation whatsoever?
And again, these aren't questions if we cannot answer them right now. You sent me quite a list of questions, and I believe you got answers to those. Or I need to get you those answers.
You need to get me
I just recently got those answers. I need to forward them to you. I apologize about that because and that's not on Roger. He got them to me. I failed to forward them to you yet, so that's on me. So if these questions you have right now are the same as the ones you sent to me, I will forward that to you this afternoon because Mr. Blaylock did answer them for me.
Well, I guess that my questions are on the record because I've transmitted them to electronically.
Absolutely. Yes, sir, they are. And again,
so very quickly, I'd like to speak. I'll cut to the chase. We are upset and concerned also about the septic to sewer conversion program because we don't think that we understand who is benefiting, what is benefiting.
Well, I can answer those two for you. We're benefiting. The sound is benefiting. Yeah, everybody in the county.
My question is that what special treatment do developers get when we put a sewer line in? What is the process improvement for them that they don't have to even ask you all now because you put a sewer line in? Well, I've asked the question, who paid for the sewer line to the Nature's Cove? Who paid for the sewer line to the waters? Who paid to the sewer line to?
You talking within the subdivision or the main trunk?
On the main road.
Okay, Roger, I would believe that's. I'm going to take a shot here, but it's probably CDGB funding, which.
No. I believe that would be the individual utility franchisee if it's not the developer.
So
we don't have that detail.
It is SSRUS?
I do not. We do not have that kind of information. They are a publicly run utility.
In all likelihood, it would either be SSRUS or the developer. The county is not involved in that, though.
I understand that no county taxpayer dollars are, but somebody is making a lot of money after putting these sewer lines in.
Well, what happens in a subdivision, this developer goes in here or anywhere and puts in a whole sewage system, and then the utility gets the benefit. If you run a mile of sewage line to a development and anybody taps on along that mile, the utility gets that benefit, not the developer.
My question is, I can't even debate with you on that point because I don't know who's paying for it. Well, and we want to know because it's public information.
Okay. Well, in this case, according to Commissioner Lynchard, it's a utility. I said CDGB because in Baghdad and in several other places in the county, we've been able to obtain grant funding to get septic tanks near our waterways, off septic and on the sewage to protect our waterways, keep the effluent out of them.
How did we come with the decision to use grinder pumps over gravity systems? I'm sorry?
Stuff don't move uphill. You have to have a pump and move it. If it was downhill,
No. A gravity system and a pressure grinder system are two different kinds of systems.
And you can't move. Gravity means it's going downhill. A pump means it's going to be pumped.
Listen, gravity systems are not the law of gravity systems. They fall from the house
Yeah.
into the main, and then we already have 89 pumping systems in the SSRUS system for gravity fed. Okay, that's how the stuff gets to Circle Road. It's not the little grinder pumps, the 1 watt grinder pumps, or the 1 kilowatt grinder pumps. There's a gravity system out there. They are more cost effective than grinder pump systems. They are less apt to failure. And, you know, I can grate you all this stuff out, but I don't know how we came up with the decision to apply for a grant for grinder systems.
Can't answer that, but that's one of the questions we'll have to get you the answer to.
Well, I guess complaining costs money. By my calculations, because I'm already attached to the SSRUS system, I know what my sewer bills are. I have a pool, you know, even though when I fill my pool up because of evaporation, that water doesn't go down the drain, I still get billed because I use the water to go into the pool. That's probably the downside of having a pool. But it looks to me, based on, and just for argument's sake, that RUSS are going to make, with the grant, if we get the Restore grant and money in place, it'll probably cost, the system probably will cost $3.5 million all in. So SSRUS will essentially get a $3.5 million system for $500,000. That's like 15 cents on the dollar. And in turn, over the life cycle, they will make more than $1.6 million out of just having that system. That's an 80% return on their investment.
And in turn, that system is being put in to improve water quality in the sound. I mean, that's the
Listen,
public benefit.
If we didn't have any more development, with the houses they're going to follow because of the developments you all are approving on the sound, if we didn't have sewer, those houses, if you had kept the status quo with the septic systems, because of the development that's going to happen, the runoff from the development, part of the lesson that you didn't want to hear, the runoff from part of from development, from the impervious surface and the lawns and everything else will be worse be a greater impact on the sound than the septic systems are.
That's not accurate. That's absolutely not accurate. It's just not. I mean, no, we're moving toward having testing or mandatory testing for stormwater runoff and testing it like we do everything else. But the reality is this project that you're referencing is a project that has been proven throughout the state of Florida to reduce nitrates going into water bodies that are creating and promoting algae growth, that are eliminating seagrasses in areas like our impaired waterway, like the Santa Rosa Sound. I've listened to you for a while. Let me finish, please. Okay?
Oh, because it's my podium.
Please let me finish. This is a scientific fact that the project that is going on now that will help convert septic tanks to a sewer system will, without question, help in the restoration of the water quality of the Santa Rosa Sound. That's not my opinion. That is scientific fact.
Then why did the city of Coral Gables say, no, they don't want to be involved in it?
I'm just telling you, if given the option
Why
of
does
having
Key
sewer
West-
systems next to a water source like the Santa Rosa Sound or having a sewer system, it is absolutely without question better to have a sewer system. And I think your numbers also on the amount of capital that has been outlaid by South Santa Rosa are not exactly accurate. I know they put close to $800,000 just in the design and permitting to make it possible for us to apply for those grants. So I think the project there and the one at Holly by the Sea are wonderful projects that are going to help all Santa Rosa County and help restore that water body.
Well, thank you, Mr. Williamson, because you answered my question.
All right, let's hear from our next speaker then. Sir. Sir, if you'll sit down, we got another speaker. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your patience. I need your name and address for the record, please.
Peter T. Harris Inman, 3583 Laguna Court. I want to talk about the golf course in the city just real quick. I have a piece of property on the golf course that I've tried to get to build a house on. The city has denied me permission. They have it's crazy deed restriction deal where that parcel was once part of the golf course, part of the affluent water permit, so they have to release that in order for me to develop it. I'm asking for less than a quarter acre. I can probably mitigate most of it, but they're using that as an excuse to not allow me to do it, but yet they're turning around and trying to develop mass parcels for their benefit. I would just ask that you guys give a lot of consideration to their request for development. They got it kind of under different, I don't know, I'm not sure the word, but it seems like it's a one-way deal. And I think that there's a lot of the current constituents that approved what we thought was going to happen there. And before I bought that little parcel, it was before the golf course owned the city owned the golf course. I had spoken with the utility company. They had said that it was not a problem. They didn't use it. They didn't have plans to use it for a spray field. And again, since then, I've been kind of vocal about my opinion on the city and the way they've handled what they told us they were going to do. I think that they're denying me the ability to develop that land now is a direct result of that.
Does that property have neighbors? Is there houses on the other side of you?
Yes.
Okay. I'll ask that you get with Mr. Murray and make sure he has all your contact information and kind of fill him in on this. And perhaps he can get with Miss Abel and see if we can't come to some sort of conclusion for you.
That would be great. I would appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, while the next speaker is coming,
I
I'd
just
like,
got a clarification. Leon Wynn.
Hold on just a second, sir.
just before, as people are leaving, I want a clarification. The development order for Nature's Cove
And a little closer,
includes the right-of-way stub out to the north.
Okay. Thank you, Roger. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Leon Wynn, 4170 Sarinka Way, Gulf Breeze. I just want to clarify something Mr. Parker said. He made reference to those 5 documents in front of him. And I believe you said you didn't have the time to review all those. You depend on your staff, is that correct?
I said prior to Monday's meeting.
But prior to that, you depend on your staff, is that correct?
Absolutely.
Correct statement?
And I highly commended them for the job they do, which I appreciate much more.
Very
now.
good, very good. Does every commissioner here have a staff?
We have one staff. We're fiscally constrained to the point that, unlike our neighboring counties, we don't all have individual staff.
So you and the rest of the commissioners depend on your staff a lot, right?
Yes, sir. Day-to-day operations, we depend, I want to say, solely on the direction and guidance of our county administrator, our assistant county administrator, and the folks that they've employed to do the job.
Those 5 bids in front of you, who gave them to you? Was it your planning department?
Actually, my procurement officer
Procurement.
hand-walked them over to my office.
Yeah. But you did say prior to Monday, you didn't read anything.
Prior to Monday, I had not read those, no, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to assume that every member on this committee doesn't have the time to read documents like that. I'm going to assume that. Since you can't read them, I assume they can't read them either. So you depend a great deal on your staff.
We depend on our staff to narrow it down from all these to 2 or 3 that they feel are the most
So you-
comfortable, and then that's what we're gonna have a
You
meeting
trust
on,
your staff.
where we'll interview them, absolutely.
Absolutely.
They're citizens here, just like you and I are.
Yeah.
They do an excellent job for this county.
In your opinion?
My opinion, yeah.
Okay,
And that's, seems to be pretty popular right now.
Taxpayers' opinion, they don't do a good enough job at all.
Well, it seems like a lot of taxpayers appreciate it, because that's why I'm sitting up here still,
Yeah,
so
well, I
thank
didn't
you
vote
very
for
much.
you. Anyway, I just wanted to clarify that. Since you don't have enough time to read the documents presented to you by your staff, then I assume nobody on this board has enough time.
Got past that point now.
Is that
What's your
correct?
point?
I'll ask you directly. Do you have enough time to read all that?
No, sir.
No, sir.
But when he
So
gets
what
it-
are we paying you for?
Would that man over there and his staff get it down to 2 or 3 of these, now that we're gonna interview them, I'll sit down and read them.
So you wait till the last minute?
No, sir. We got this scheduled 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it.
One quick comment.
Yes, ma'am.
This can go on and on and on, this discussion here.
It's
I
not going to.
sympathize with those folks. I sympathize with you folks. I know that you have to follow the Land Development Code as written. If not, you get slapped into court with a bird hair suit.
Yes, ma'am.
And it will cost the taxpayers far more than buying up all their property. So you've got to be very, very careful. I know you've done this in the past. I don't see, Jared, you're an attorney. I don't see the county attorney, but you've done it before. I ask you to bring back on your 1st of December agenda some kind, you can't fix and save those trees they're dozing in now, but you can fix something going forward. Could you have the county administrator come back to you first week in December with some form, you've done it, I know you've done it, and bring up the records, a moratorium on large-scale developments in that area, plot out an area. Anything that's in the pipeline, yes, that's got to fly. You can't change it. But serve notice that there's a temporary moratorium because you're redoing the land development code. Is there any way you could do that? Because this is just going to go on and on. Those people that own those large parcels are going to keep slapping in.
Yeah, one of Sean's slides that he had up earlier showed the number of developments that have been, or number of plats that have been approved in the last 10 years. And I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know how many it was, averaging 1 per year
Right.
or less. I don't know that we could put a moratorium on while we consider our tree ordinance, because it's something that we're going to go ahead and move on. We will have to come up with a proposed tree ordinance. It'll go to our Planning and Zoning Board, then it'll come back to this board for a public hearing, and we'll hold the public hearing and enact a revised ordinance. So it's not something that's going to happen by the first meeting in December. We may be able to
I don't
move
mean
it to the
like
land, to
tree
the
ordinance
planning
is
board.
one thing, but I'm talking about pulling permits, large-scale development permits. Now, one that I'm familiar with is you did a moratorium on pits for a while until you got the land development code straightened out. Is there any way you could draw a map over this area and say large-scale developments will have a moratorium until you get everything worked out? I know that in my subdivision, there was some wetlands to the north, and a lot of my residents in my neighborhood, they squawk, look what they're doing. I said, you can't stop it. I said, he stopped to just the front part, because I pulled up the wetlands map. So the minute that one lady saw that that contractor went over the line, she called the DEP. You know what I mean? Because you can't control that, some of those wetland stuff, but if there was a way you could put a moratorium, because
And that's something,
It's gonna
we'll have to
keep
get with
going.
Mr. Andrews and find out what the
What either
criteria and requirements are for any kind of moratorium
Yeah,
on
because I know you
development.
have to serve notice in the paper so that those large-scale landowners can.
I'll talk with the county attorney next week when he's back in the office. I know in the past, he has advised this board that that's not something that he would recommend or undertake. I don't know if it could be made specific enough that he would consider it, but I'll talk with him next week about that.
Okay, thank you.
And I think we've heard from the folks down here loud and clear today. And if, Commissioner Lynchert and the attorney and county administrator come up with a plan, I feel pretty solid in saying that I think the board would probably back them up on it, so. All right. Anybody else?
So I just wanted to point out for everybody's awareness, our courthouse proposals are in. They were due at 10:30 this morning. We received 6 proposals.
Great.
So the staff will review those over the next month, bring a shortlist recommendation in December, and we have interviews scheduled for that December 18th and 19th.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're adjourned.